The road behind the house never stopped being there. It just kept becoming more than it was. This is a quiet winter story about distance changing when no one is watching, and about a place that does not want to be reached. Welcome to the Black Hour Stories. Tonight settles in slowly, like snow that falls too lightly to notice at first. The season has already turned. The air holds that thin, dry cold that comes before the deep freezes. The kind of cold that stretches time and makes familiar places feel farther away than they used to be. This is a story meant to move at the same pace as winter itself. There is no need to hurry. Everything arrives eventually. The house sat at the edge of a small rural town where the streetlights stopped and the trees began. It was not old enough to be historic, and not new enough to feel temporary. It had been built when the town expected to grow, back when someone believed more people would come. They never really did. Behind the house was a narrow 2-lane road. It curved gently as it passed the backyard, then disappeared into woods that thickened quickly once the pavement ended. Most people thought of it as a back road, barely worth naming. It led past abandoned fields, crossed a shallow creek, and eventually met a highway miles away. Or at least it used to. The man who lived in the house had been there for 7 winters. He moved in during a late fall, when the leaves were already gone and the trees were thin and skeletal. He liked that the place was quiet. He liked that the nights were dark. He liked that the road behind the house carried very little traffic, especially after sunset. In winter, he walked it. He started walking the road at night during his first cold season. At first, it was just to clear his head. The town was small, and winter made it feel smaller. Stores closed early. People went inside and stayed there. The nights stretched long and empty, and the road offered something steady. A line, a direction. He would put on his coat, his gloves, his boots, and step out the back door. The cold would bite at his face, sharp and clean. The sound of the door closing behind him always felt final, even though he knew he would be back soon. He would turn left and start walking. The road was quiet. Snow muffled everything. His boots made a steady crunching sound that stayed close to his body. The trees on either side leaned inward, their bare branches reaching toward the pavement. At first, the walks were always the same length. He did not time them, but he felt them. His body knew how far he went. There was a point where his fingers started to ache, where his breath turned rough, where his thoughts slowed and grew heavier. That was where he turned back. The next night, he would reach the same point. Then one night, he did not. It happened after the first real snow of the season. Not a dusting, but a proper snowfall that covered the road and the fields and the trees in a smooth, uninterrupted white. The world felt reset, simplified. He stepped outside and breathed in the cold air, and it felt deeper than before. He walked. The crunch of his boots was softer now, the snow thick enough to absorb some of the sound. The trees looked closer together, their dark trunks standing out sharply against the snow. He walked past where he usually turned. At first, he did not realize it. There was no marker, no sign. Just a feeling that should have arrived and did not. His fingers did not ache yet. His breath stayed even. His legs felt strong. He kept going. Eventually, the cold did settle in. His hands stiffened. His breath grew rough. He stopped and looked around, surprised by how far he had gone. The road ahead still stretched on, pale and narrow, vanishing into the trees. He turned back. The walk home felt longer than it should have. His legs burned by the time he reached his yard. He stood on the back step longer than usual, breathing hard, staring down the road as if expecting it to change while he watched. It did not. The next night, he went out again. This time, he paid attention. He walked until his fingers began to ache. He counted his steps. He marked the trees he passed, the way one leaned slightly toward the road, the way another split into two trunks near the base. He watched for the shallow dip where the pavement cracked, for the bend that came just before the woods thickened. He passed all of them. The road was longer. It was not dramatically longer, not enough to be impossible, just enough to be wrong. He turned back sooner this time. The walk home still took longer than expected. Over the next week, the pattern held. Each night he walked, the road stretched a little farther. The landmarks shifted, appearing later than they should have. New trees appeared at the edges of the woods. The creek crossing did not come when it was supposed to. He told himself that snow changed things, that winter played tricks on distance, that darkness made everything feel farther away. These were reasonable thoughts, comfortable ones. But the road did not shorten on nights when he stayed inside. It only grew when he walked it. He began to notice other changes. The road behind the house was used by a few other people. A farmer farther down used it to reach his fields. A delivery truck passed through once or twice a week. During the day, cars still went by. They did not seem to notice anything strange. But the man noticed that the sound of traffic faded sooner than it used to. When he stood in his backyard during the day, he could hear cars pass, tires on pavement, engines humming. Those sounds did not carry as far down the road anymore. They seemed to disappear into the trees after a shorter distance, swallowed by the quiet. At night, the darkness along the road felt heavier. The trees seemed closer, their branches knitting together above the pavement. The sky visible between them grew narrower. He adjusted his walks. He stopped trying to reach a certain point. Instead, he walked for a certain amount of time, then turned back no matter where he was. This helped at first. Time still behaved the way it should. 10 minutes out, 10 minutes back. Then one night, the return took 15. He stood in his kitchen afterward, hands wrapped around a mug he did not remember pouring, and stared at the back door. His reflection in the glass looked thinner, stretched slightly, like it belonged somewhere farther away. He stopped walking the road for a while. Winter deepened. Snow piled up along the edges of the pavement. The temperature dropped and stayed there. The nights grew longer, pressing against the house. The road sat behind the yard, quiet and waiting. He tried not to look at it. But the road had a way of pulling his attention. When he stood at the sink, he found himself glancing out the back window. When he took out the trash, his eyes drifted down the pavement. There was always the same view at first, the curve, the trees, the darkness beyond. One evening, he noticed footprints in the snow. They started near the house and followed the road away. They were his size, his tread. He knew them instantly. They did not return. The snow had fallen overnight, fresh and undisturbed. The footprints were crisp, clean-edged. They led down the road and vanished into the trees where the pavement dipped out of sight. He stood at the edge of the yard for a long time, staring at them. He knew he had not walked the road the night before. He remembered staying inside. He remembered the television light flickering against the walls. He remembered going to bed early. The footprints did not care. He followed them for a short distance, staying close to the house. They matched his stride perfectly. The spacing was right. The depth was right. They angled slightly inward, the way his did when he walked in heavy boots. He stopped before the curve. That night, he dreamed of walking. In the dream, the road was endless. It stretched straight and flat, the trees lining it perfectly evenly on both sides. The snow did not crunch under his boots. It did not make any sound at all. The sky above was a flat, colorless gray with no stars and no moon. He walked without getting tired. He did not wake up until morning light crept into the room, thin and pale. After that, the road grew whether he walked it or not. During the day, he noticed changes. The curve seemed farther from the house. The creek crossing did not appear when it should have during drives. The farmer down the road stopped passing by. He asked around, carefully, casually. People said the farmer had moved his equipment, that the road was bad in winter, that no one liked driving it after dark. No one mentioned distance. The man began measuring. He used his car first, resetting the odometer at the end of his driveway and driving until he reached the highway. The number was higher than it had been the month before, higher than it should have been. He walked during the day, counting steps, marking trees with small scratches where no one would notice. When he returned the next day, the marks were farther apart. The road was stretching itself out, pulling away from the house like something alive and cautious. Winter pressed on. Snowstorms came and went. The world narrowed to shades of white and gray. The town felt distant, even when he was in it. Conversation slid off him. Sounds felt muted. The road behind the house darkened. One night, he noticed something standing at the far edge of his backyard. At first, he thought it was a tree. The snow made shapes deceptive. But this shape was too straight, too narrow. It stood where the road curved, just before the trees swallowed it. It did not move. He watched it from the window, heart steady but heavy. The porch light did not reach that far. The shape remained a darker absence against the snow. When he blinked, it seemed slightly farther away. He did not go outside. The shape returned on other nights. Sometimes it stood closer, sometimes farther. It was never the same distance twice. It never crossed into the yard. It never stepped fully into the road. It waited. The road continued to grow. By midwinter, the curve was no longer visible from the house. The pavement ran straight back for a long distance, then dipped gently downward into the trees. The house felt smaller, as if the land behind it was slowly claiming more space. He began hearing things at night, not footsteps, not voices, just the sound of movement far away, like wind passing through empty branches where there were none. The sound came from the road, from deep within the woods where the pavement vanished. Sometimes, when he lay in bed, he felt a gentle pulling sensation, as if the house itself were being drawn backward, inch by inch, toward the road. He started sleeping in the front room. The dreams returned. In them, he walked the road while snow fell endlessly from a sky that never changed. The trees leaned closer with every step. The road narrowed until it was barely wide enough for his boots. He never reached the end. He never turned back. Each time he woke, his legs ached. One morning, he found snow inside the house, just a little. A thin scattering near the back door, melting into dark spots on the floor. The door was locked. The windows were sealed. The snow had no clear path. He swept it up and did not think about where it came from. The footprints returned, more frequent now. Some nights they appeared while he slept. Other times they showed up while he was awake, forming slowly at the edge of the yard as if pressed down by an invisible weight. They always led away. He stopped measuring. Numbers stopped helping. The road was longer than it had been yesterday. It would be longer tomorrow. One evening, during a heavy snowfall, the power went out. The house fell into deep quiet. The only light came from the snow outside, reflecting what little glow the sky offered. He stood at the back window and watched the flakes drift down, thick and steady. The road was barely visible. Then he saw movement. Not the shape this time, but something else. A shifting in the darkness, like the road itself was adjusting, settling. The snow on the pavement slid slightly, realigning itself. The road extended. It happened smoothly, without sound. The curve slid farther away, the trees rearranging themselves as if they had always been that way. The distance grew before his eyes, slow and inevitable. Something about that broke the last of his restraint. He put on his coat. The cold hit him immediately, sharper than ever. The air felt heavier, harder to breathe. He stepped onto the road and began walking. The snow did not crunch. His boots sank in, but the sound did not come. The silence pressed in around him, thick and close. The house behind him faded quickly, swallowed by darkness and falling snow. He walked. The trees leaned in. The sky narrowed. The road stretched ahead, pale and endless. He passed landmarks that should not have been there, trees with twisted trunks, stones half buried in snow, a broken fence that led nowhere. He did not feel tired. Eventually, he saw the shape again. It stood in the road this time, far ahead. Tall and narrow, darker than the night around it. It did not move as he approached. The closer he came, the farther away it seemed. The distance between them stretched, matching his pace perfectly. No matter how long he walked, he did not gain ground. The road was not meant to be finished. He stopped. For the first time, the road responded. The air shifted. The silence deepened. The trees creaked softly, settling into new positions. The shape ahead leaned, just slightly, as if acknowledging him. He turned around. The house was gone. Behind him, the road stretched back, longer than it had ever been. The trees closed in tight, their branches tangled overhead. The snow fell steadily, erasing any sign of where he had come from. He walked anyway. Time lost meaning. Steps blurred together. The cold never deepened, never eased. The road remained the same beneath his boots, endless and patient. Eventually, a glow appeared ahead. Not the shape, something else. A faint yellow light, steady and familiar. He walked toward it, hope settling cautiously in his chest. The house emerged from the snow. It was his house. The shape was right. The windows glowed softly. Smoke rose from the chimney. It sat at the edge of the road, just as it always had. He reached the yard and stopped. The footprints in the snow were already there. They led from the road to the back door. They did not come back out. The light in the windows felt distant, like something seen through thick glass. The house did not feel anchored to the ground. It felt like it was resting there temporarily, placed for convenience. He did not go inside. He stood at the edge of the yard as the snow fell around him. The road behind him waited, stretching quietly, ready to add more distance whenever he stepped onto it again. By morning, the house behind the town sat empty. Neighbors noticed eventually. They said he must have left during the night. They said the winter had been hard. They said people disappeared sometimes. The road behind the house kept growing. Each winter, it gets a little longer. Cars avoid it now. The farmer never came back. The trees along its edge stand closer together than they should. Sometimes, after a heavy snowfall, footprints appear near the house. They lead down the road and vanish into the woods. If you ever find yourself standing at the edge of your yard in winter, staring down a road that feels farther than it used to, it may already be happening. The distance is patient. Thank you for spending this time with the Black Hour Stories. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments. If this story carried you through the cold hours, a gentle like and subscribe helps these nights continue. Rest now. The road will still be there tomorrow.